She got it right from the word go. I wasn't very good. Took me quite a little while to get any sound out of it. But she got it straight off.
We bought Hadar one for Yom Tov.
Oh, lovely.
Well, Dana went to get it.
I'm just getting my PowerPoint.
Yes, but Jeff and Brenda, did you go to the second service then on Rosh Hashanah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, I went to the first one.
We could have gone to the first one as well. There wasn't that many people, but yeah.
How many people came to the second one?
Couldn't get in.
Well, all the seats were not full. Let's put it that way.
There was quite a lot of women in the second day of Rosh Hashanah. There was about 20 women. That was,
but there were still plenty of
bubbles,
seats,
which was very nice.
There were still plenty of seats available, though.
Oh yes, but there's always seats.
Yeah.
But I thought 20 women were pretty good. About 30 men. Could have been more men.
I wasn't counting.
No, I didn't count properly, but about. But it was nice seeing some youngsters there. That was very nice.
It was a very nice service, considering.
That was good.
Do you mean like teenagers, Brenda?
Yes, yeah, you know, Tracy's sons, three boys. I mean, they must be a bit older than teenagers, but
yeah,
they came, and there's a couple of other families that came with the.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was between 18 and 22, something like that.
Yeah,
that was nice. Yeah. But it was different. I got a bit emotional because it's not what it should be, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that's it.
We had a few people that didn't show up, which is a bit annoying because if we have that for Yom Kippur, I mean, people have all kinds of reasons, but if we have that for Yom Kippur, we could end up putting on more services than we need, which is kind of annoying. We wouldn't have quite fitted in one sitting, and also a lot of people are quite happy to come to a 1 hour and a half service rather than 3 hour or whatever. But bit of a strange business, really. Okay, nearly ready, hopefully. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about rain and diversity. Oops. Diversity is a very topical topic. Okay. Hi, Beryl. Is that Beryl? You're muted. Okay, no problem. Right, just saying hi.
Lenovo Tab 410, you're muted.
I think it's Beryl.
I think it's
Beryl.
Oh, that's it. Good.
Thank you. Yeah, I've unmuted it now. Thank you.
Good morning, Beryl.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
So it's the same parsha as last week. Excuse me, Yoli. Got up at 4:45, which we said previously is probably a bad idea. Right, same parsha as last week. Haazinu, off we go. Iris, you should know it from last week.
The greater part of the Torah reading of Haazinu, listen in, consists of a 70-line song delivered by Moses to the people of Israel on the last day of his earthly life. Calling heaven and earth as witnesses, Moses exhorts the people, remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will recount it to you. Your elders, and they will tell you how God found them in a desert land, made them a people, chose them as his own, and bequeathed them a bountiful land. The song also warns against the pitfalls of plenty. Yeshurun grew fat and kicked. You have grown fat, thick, and rotund. He forsook God who made him and spurned the rock of his salvation. And the terrible calamities that would result, which Moses describes as God hiding his face. Yet in the end, he promises, God will avenge the blood of his servants and be reconciled with his people and land. The Parsha concludes with God's instruction to Moses to ascend the summit of Mount Nebo, from which he will behold the promised land before dying on the mountain. For you shall see the land opposite you, but you shall not go there, into the land which I give to the children of Israel.
Thank you. Okay. Now, in that song of Haazinu, there's one line which we're going to look at now, which is this. Who would like to read this?
I'll do it, Rabbi.
Okay, do you want me to read?
Mark,
Mark, or you
Right.
can what?
Right. Let my teaching drop as rain, my words descend like dew, like showers on new grass, like abundant rain on tender plants.
right? Nice analogy. God's word is like rain on dry land. It makes things grow. We can do lots of things. We can plow and plant, but we need rain. If there's no rain, then there's no harvest. Then everything goes wrong, right? We spend a lot of our time praying for rain. So it's the same with us. We should know that our power, our strength comes from God's teachings, which are like rain, which basically allow us to grow. Let's see what happens if we don't recognize that. Okay, who'd like to read this one?
I'll read it if you like. And you,
Yeah.
and you say to yourselves, my own power and the might of my own hand have won this wealth for me.
Right, this is being conveyed in a negative sense. The Torah says, sometimes there'll come a time that you're successful, and basically this is the idea also where it says Yeshurun kicked out. You will bite the hand that feeds you. Instead of saying our success is down to Hashem, you'll say, oh, well, this was down to my own power and might and my own hand. That's what accomplished this wealth in that case for me. This is often one of the points of great arguments regarding the kind of whole ideology of, if you like, the IDF and Israeli defense. A Haredi person says they don't need the army, possibly. I don't know if they say that or not. A religious Zionist person says that the army is very important and we're going to pray and we're going to learn Torah and we're also going to make sure we have the latest weaponry, but we recognize that Hashem is the real power behind the throne. And the secular person says,
God helps those who help themselves.
Help themselves, right, exactly. But this is an easy trap to fall into when we think it's down to our own efforts. I once wrote a sermon after, I don't remember what it was. 25 minutes before whenever candlelight. I think it's on the, it should be on the thing downstairs on the board. I don't know what. Right, okay. Sorry, right. I once wrote a sermon around, I don't remember what had happened, something had happened with the UN or Gaza war or something, and it was quite sort of militaristic about how we have to look after ourselves. And I shared it with colleagues, and a couple of them basically cited this verse and said, too much of this kind of thing, that it's a bit like Mr. Trump as well. We have to be careful. We have to know where our true power comes from. So power does not come from us, it comes from Hashem. Okay. And similarly, when it comes to growth and Torah and our teaching, his teachings, there's something more to it than that. Let's see how the Sifrei, the Midrash, views it. Who would like to read number 4?
I'll do that.
Jeff, yeah.
Let my teaching drop as rain, just as the rain is one thing, yet it falls on trees, enabling each to produce tasty fruit, according to the kind of tree it is. The vine in its way, the olive tree in its way, and the date palm in its way. So the Torah is one, yet its words yield scripture, Mishnah, laws, and law, like showers on new grass, just as showers fall upon the plants and make them grow, some green, some red, some black, some white. So the words of the Torah produce teachers, worthy individuals, sages, the righteous and the pious.
Right, so there's 2 interpretations of this. One is that it just means that our strength comes from God, that he's like the rain, the water that waters us and allows us to grow. And this is a more nuanced approach that says that in the same way that rain, although rain when it falls is universal in its nature, but it affects different things in different ways. So it is with Torah as well, that each Torah, although it's one seemingly the same thing, it's all Torah, but there's different branches and strands, and different people react to it in different ways. It's a very beautiful idea. So that even though we have one Torah, it has a multiple effect on many different people. Different kinds of teaching, different kinds of character. It's interesting because often when people complain about, all these rules in Judaism, they say, oh, you're just trying to create a load of robots and automatons. This Midrash says, well, no, actually, that's not true. The Torah is compared to rain precisely because just like rain helps each thing to grow in its own way, Torah helps us each to grow as well. We're not the same. The Torah doesn't want us to be the same. Here's a famous quote from the Mishnah. about individualism or individuality. Here we go. Pam or Julian, would you like to read that?
When a human being makes many coins from the same mint, they are all the same. God makes everyone in the same image, his image, yet none is the same as another.
So here we go. Excuse me. Uniqueness of God, right? For us, if we make clones of things and they look the same, for Hashem, even though we're all made in his image, so on the one hand we're all the same. On the other hand, we all have no two human beings are alike, right? No two fingerprints alike, and no two people are alike. We find this in other places as well. Anyone know where else we found this recently? Anyone remember? They don't remember what Moshe said when he asked Hashem to appoint a successor. What he called him. We did learn this. Anyone remember? All right, I'll give you it. Oh, it's a different translation here. Okay. So in Bamidbar, this is what he says, Yifkod Hashem Elokei Haruchos L'chol Basar. May the God who is the God of all the spirits, of all flesh, appoint a man over the congregation. And this is what Rashi says. Who'd like to read that? God of the spirits of all flesh. Go on, Beryl, yeah.
No, not me, no, Pam, thank you.
Oh, sorry, Pam. Sorry, right.
Why is this expression, God of the spirits of all humankind, used? Moses said to him, Lord of the universe, you know each person's character and that no two people are alike. Therefore, appoint a leader for them who will bear with each person according to his or her disposition.
Right. So a leader has to be someone who can recognize and respect the different needs of individuals. This is interesting. I mentioned over Yom Tov the leaders being shepherds, because a shepherd looks after every last lost one of their flock. A leader also has to be adaptable. A leader who preaches the same for everyone is not going to work. So when Moshe wants to find the right person, he says, God, you who knows each person's needs, each person's spirit, what drives them, point a leader who has a similar quality about them. It's not just trying to create carbon copies. Okay, see what Maimonides says in the Guide to the Perplexed, which is quite perplexing itself often in places. Who's feeling ambitious?
I'll do it if you like, Rabbi.
Yes. Okay.
Man is, as you know, the highest form of creation, and he therefore includes the largest number of the constituent elements. This is why the human race contains so great a variety of individuals that we cannot discover two persons exactly alike in any moral quality or in external appearance. This great variety and the necessity of social life are essential elements in man's nature. But the well-being of society demands that there should be a leader able to regulate the actions of man. He must complete every shortcoming, remove every excess, and prescribe for the conduct of all, so that the natural variety should be counterbalanced by the uniformity of legislation, so that social order be well established.
This is very topical, right? This is one of the problems in society today with all this lockdown stuff and corona stuff, is finding the balance between the needs of the many and the needs of the few, right? And people often say the government's not getting it right. So this is actually very topical. How do you find the balance between the fact that we're not all the same, different strokes for different folks, and you need an order to society? You can't have everyone just make up their own rules, and sometimes you have to live by other people's rules. So this is actually very topical. And Maimonides says, this is one of the challenges of the human race, that we're not alike. We have great varieties in our makeup and our character and our needs, but at the same time, society needs regulation. So you have to find a balance. Here you go, Moshe. Right? It's a big challenge. It's a challenge nowadays, probably was always a challenge. Now, along similar lines, because we don't want chaos at the end of the day, right? If everyone's doing their own thing, there's going to be chaos. There has to be some order, So it's this question: how do you find the balance between order and at the same time individuality? Anyone know the blessing if you see 600,000 Jews in one place?
If you what? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
There is a bracha if you see 100,000 Jews in one place, which probably doesn't happen very often. But if you do, there is a bracha that you say. I've never said it myself, but anyone know what the bracha is? Probably in the Art Scroll Siddur. What would you think might be suitable wording for a bracha on a huge crowd of people?
But there should be peace and harmony with them.
Right? So something that conveys, unity, harmony, that we're all the same, we're all creating God's image, something like that, something that tends towards unity and oneness. Yeah, any other suggestions?
Well, it's a great thing to have all those people together.
Right,
Really,
power
I
of community.
suppose.
Yeah. So the actual bracha is very strange. The actual bracha is, have we got it in Hebrew here? No, we've got it in English. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. I think it's Chacham Harazos, which means he knows the secrets of people. You have 600,000 Israelites. What do you say? That God knows their secrets. Why is that the bracha that you make? You don't talk about harmony or unity or peace or the power of the many over the power of the one. Let's see what the Talmud says. Who would like to read?
Oh, okay.
Mark?
I'll read if you like.
Brenda, okay.
Our rabbis taught, if one sees a crowd of Israelites, one says, blessed be he who can discern secrets, because the mind of each is different from that of another, just as the face of each is different from another.
Right, so like everyone said, you would think a bracha on a crowd of people would talk about the size, the mass, all the people together, the collective, community, oneness, unity. It actually does the complete opposite. It says, bless you, O God, who creates all these people, each with their own secrets, each with their own individuality. So question, does Judaism support individuality or collective ism, if there is such an ism?
Yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting. Yes, we're all the same, but at one. We're all one. We belong to the same God.
Right. So it's like the answer to most things is
Yeah.
you're right, and you're right too. Right? Clearly, there are many places that we're emphasizing individuality. This is very topical when it comes to things like education. A lot of schools push kids all in a certain direction, what they call cookie cutter, without any recognition of diversity. On the other hand, you have to have some cohesion. You can't just have everyone doing their own thing. So it's how you find the balance between community cohesion and individuality is a big, big challenge. And even as, one of the things we do is when we read the reading in the Torah that talks about the gifts that the 12 tribes princes brought at the dedication of the Mishkan, right? It says each brought the same thing. Why did they each bring the same thing? So I recently saw to prove that they went out doing each other with their wealth, which is nice. But another reason is because it wasn't really the same thing at all, because two people can bring the same gift, but you can bring it with completely different intention, right? When you bring your I don't know, whatever, your mother a gift, if your mother's alive, or whatever, your wife or your husband a gift, often it's not the value, it's the sentiment behind it. That same gift, people sometimes buy, they'll buy their husband, I don't know, whatever, an LP of the first single they ever danced to in 1972, which to anybody else is worth 35 pence, although they've gone up in value recently. So you can't, everyone has different values and different things and different priorities. And it's one of the beautiful things about human beings is even when we say, oh, well, Judaism is very uniform, we all say the same prayers, we all say the same mitzvot, we all do the same mitzvot. Even there's room for individuality. One of the areas there's room for individuality is, yes, we all have to do mitzvahs, but at the end of the day, we all excel at different things. There's a famous Gemara that says what each person was saying, what their father's greatest mitzvah they excelled in. Right? So one says tzedakah, one says tzitzis, and one says davening. People will find something they excel in. You get somebody that davens for hours beautifully. You'll get somebody else that's very charitable, and that's more their kind of thing. You'll get somebody that's very studious. You get all kinds of different people. Let's see what the Talmud says about this. This is a Mishnah talking about when different people died and the impact on the world. Who would like to read?
I'll do it if you like.
Tom?
When Rabbi Meir died, the composers of fables ceased. When Ben Azai died, assiduous students ceased. When Ben Zoma died, the expositors ceased. When Rabbi Akiva died, the glory of the Torah ceased. When Reb Hanina died, men of deeds ceased. When Rabbi Yosef Katanta died, the pious men ceased. When Rabbi Yohanan ben Zakkai died, the luster of wisdom ceased. When Rabbi died, humility and the fear of sin ceased.
Rabbi, by the way, is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Rabbi Judah, the prince, the composer of the Mishnah. So if Sally was here, she'd say, what about when all the ladies died? What died with them? But anyway, so you have all these rabbis, basically it says different qualities died with them, right? So they weren't all the same. For some, it was the glory of Torah. For some, it was the exposition of Torah. For some, it was having, devoted students. For some, it was being able to tell stories that illustrate things. For some, it was piety. For some, it was wisdom. For some, it was humility. Different things. So even if you say the great rabbis, they all had different qualities. Some were better at different things. Each had merits. So in Torah also, people have character. Moshe, Aaron, Miriam have very different personalities, right? Amongst the kings and the prophets, people have different personalities. They speak of different things. Some speak of justice. Some speak of love. Some are more zealous. Some are more gentle. Some have simpler visions, and some have more profound visions. Interestingly, we find this at Sinai itself. Let's have a look. This is from Friday night and Shabbos morning. Mark, would you like to read the English?
Yes, the voice of the Lord is power. The voice of the Lord is majesty.
Right. What does that mean? Any idea?
Two aspects to Hashem.
It's more than two because there's loads. Well, the truth is the whole psalm is about Kol Hashem, Kol Hashem, Kol Hashem, Kol Hashem.
Okay.
We're going to focus specifically on the power here. So what does it mean that the Lord's voice is power? The God expresses himself as power. What does that actually mean? Let's have a look. Let's see what the commentaries say. Here we go. Beryl, would you like to read?
Oh, not really. I'm not very good at reading.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'll do it again because
yeah.
Small. Right. The voice of the Lord is with power.
Right. So sorry, this is quoting that previous quote from the Psalm. That the voice Kol Hashem B'Koyach, that God's voice is expressed through power. What does that mean? Yeah.
Right. The voice of the Lord is with power. That is according to the power of each individual, the young, the old, and the very small ones, each according to their power of understanding. God said to Israel, do not believe that there are many gods in heaven, because you heard many voices. Know that I alone am the Lord your God.
When we say God speaks with different voices, we don't mean there's more than one God. We mean that because he's God, he can speak in a way that talks to each individual. Now, occasionally, just occasionally, you'll get a speaker like that. A really good public speaker that somehow can manage to talk to everyone. And people say, do you know what? Everyone took a different message from that. I took this message and I took that message. It's a real talent. But if you're Hashem, it's much easier to do. I haven't got it on the screen here, but right at the beginning of the Ten Commandments, it starts in the singular tense. It says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am the Lord your God. The obvious question is, it's in the singular. Why is it not in the plural? It's talking to the children of Israel. So classic explanation would be they were unified. The other explanation is because God talks to each of us on our level. So when you hear the Ten Commandments at Sinai, you're not hearing, here's a national set of rules. You're hearing, I am you personally, and I am telling you personally all these words. And that's a much more personal message. How can that be a different message for every person contained within the same message? Because God is infinite. So when we talk about Kol Hashem B'Koyach, that Hashem's voice expressed through power, what's the power? The power of each one to interpret and receive it according to their own individual ability, which is a very powerful thing, pardon the pun. Anyone know how many different interpretations of Torah there are?
No, I don't know.
When I tell you, you'll say, oh, I've heard that before. Anybody know? There's a certain number of faces to the Torah, we're told.
Four.
More than that?
What's the basis mean?
Interpretation.
It's actually, anyone know? It's actually 70. They often say Shivim, I don't know where it comes from, but Shivim Panim la Torah. There are 70 faces, 70 facets to the Torah, which is quite a lot. So potentially there's 70 different ways of looking at everything or interpretations, right? So sometimes people are very quick to say, you know, oh, when it says light a fire on Shabbat, that doesn't mean light a fire. It means don't work too hard with two sticks. And nowadays with a match, it's not so hard, so it's okay to do it on Shabbat. Rabbi, I'm just following the 70 interpretations of the Torah. So there's 70 interpretations within the tradition of what's acceptable. Doesn't mean you can just make up your own. But there are traditionally 70 faces to the Torah. So interesting, in the Maharshal, who was a commentary on the Talmud, says there's more than that. He says there's 600,000 interpretations of Torah. Each individual is capable of unique insight, which is really interesting.
Something that strikes me, Rabbi,
Yeah,
when it says man is made in the image of Hashem,
yeah.
does that mean that Hashem has so many facets, so many different parts of him, that each man is part of Hashem in
So
part of those facets?
right. I don't know if in the Tanya class came across it yet, probably. There's one line in the book of Tanya, which is written, book of Hasidic teachings, which says that each person has within them a chelek elokah mimal mamash, which means literally a part of God above. And this was very controversial, because how can you divide God into parts? The understanding was that each of us has a spark of godliness, which that spark, which is our soul, has probably a lot of similarity with other people. On the other hand, we have different characteristics. So your question is, is the image of God monolithic? Well, first of all, God's infinite. So the image of God, by definition, has to be infinite. So that solves that problem. So if we're finite but created in the image of God, we must all have different facets of godliness in us. So I guess that even within the sort of positive character traits, you say, oh, you should be kind and charitable because God is kind and charitable. You should be merciful because God is merciful. You should do all these things that basically we're human beings and we get this from our godly soul, our inspiration, whether that's being charitable or being kind or being devout or being pious or being forgiving. But nonetheless, different people shine in different areas. So I guess the answer to that is the image of God isn't a monolithic thing. So we say man is created in the image of God. It means that we have certain facets. You're right, different facets that he has, and seems to different degrees. Because people have different personalities. Now, one of the biggest mistakes you make in any role is assuming everyone's the same. Everyone has the same personality, the same character traits. You know, so everyone's studying in this school, so they must all have the same aspirations. Or everyone comes to this synagogue, so they must have the same aspirations. Or, you know, everybody, joins this particular club, so they must have the same aspirations. A person could say, you know what, here, classic examples. So you say to me, oh, obviously, everyone that goes to an Orthodox shul must be very devout. So you'll say, well, actually, there's many different facets of people. There's people that go to an Orthodox shul because their parents on their deathbed told them that that's what they must do. Otherwise, you know, they'll turn in their graves. There's people that go to an Orthodox shul because actually very orthodox in practice and they want to follow halachic practice, and that's the best place to do it. There's people who go to Orthodox shul because they enjoy the singing, etc., etc. So you have different facets of people even within a particular sort of affiliation. So in the same way, we're created in the image of God, but that doesn't restrict us to a particular cloned model. It still gives us plenty of scope. The power that the Psalms speak about is the power of God to appeal to each individual on their level. And we said we see that reflected at Sinai. But one of the interpretations of I am the Lord, your God, singular, is that God spoke to each person on their level. Right? Like I said, you can occasionally get a really good motivational speaker, and everyone will take something different away from the speech, or a good drasha. And people say, one person takes one message, another person takes another message. It's beautiful if you can get that. That's in a way, that's the diversity. The diversity is that we have multiple people, we have different people, different needs, but they all come under one kind of umbrella. So it's this balance. Judaism clearly, from these sources, supports diversity and individual, that we're not all the same. We're not just carbon copies. On the other hand, like we said, you do need some order, and you do sometimes need some uniformity. That's why achdut and unity is important. That's why we have halachas of things like, if you're in shul and everyone else is saying Shema, you're supposed to cover your eyes to give the appearance of being with the community, even if you're not at that place in the davening, so you don't look like you're separating yourself. So it's finding that balance. Clearly, we're not supposed to just be individuals. And people say, oh, Rabbi, I serve God in my own way. No, we have a framework. So on the one hand, we have a framework and we have a Torah and we have mitzvot. On the other hand, that doesn't make you a robot. Different people have different qualities. Different rabbis, when they died, were ascribed different qualities. So clearly in Judaism, we recognize, even with all the restrictions that may sometimes seem to be a Torah lifestyle of rules and regulations, there's still room for each person to have their diversity. And I guess that they're going back to the analogy of rain. Rain, you don't specify a particular kind of rain. It rains and you get water and you deal with it. Some things need more rain, some things need less rain, some things need protection from the rain. So it's the same thing with Torah. It's like the rain, that each person gets on their level, and it helps them to grow. And it basically is a good thing, a blessing. But each person is different. That's really, really important. Each person is different. I think one of the biggest mistakes we fall into, one of the biggest traps, whether it's in our schools or in our shuls or in our learning or so many areas of Jewish life, is we just think everyone's monolithic, everyone's the same. Whether it's thinking everyone knows how to read Hebrew, or everyone knows how to say Kaddish, or everyone's rich, which I hear too much, or everyone likes coming to shul, or everyone wants this, or everyone wants that. It's not true. We all have different needs, we all have different things that talk to us. And the Talmud recognizes that, the Torah recognizes that. And we have to recognize it as well. It's the beauty of our communities and our shuls. It's what makes us diverse. The unity comes from the fact that we have I think we spoke about this with the tribes, that there were 12 separate tribes, separately camped, but they all faced into the center, right? So we can have our separate identity and our individual strengths. We don't all have to be the same. I don't know if anyone else in this group, I get it a lot being a rabbi. People say, are your kids going to become rabbis? Do you want them to become rabbis and rebbetons? Will you be disappointed if they don't follow in your footsteps? And look, my parents are academics. I became a rabbi. They supported me. I would like to think I would support my kids in what they do. We're not all carbon copies. We're not the same. It's one of the biggest mistakes parents make, is thinking their kids are mini me, and they're going to do the same. And, you'll go to this school because I went to this school, and you'll study this because I studied it, and you'll want to do things because your parents did them and they live vicariously through you. We're all different. We're all individuals. That's the bottom line. We see that. What was the beginning? How did we talk about this in the beginning? Oh, we're talking about the rain. Let's go back to the original source. Yarif, Kamata, Likhi. Here we go. 1 second. This is my bar mitzvah sedra, by the way. That my teaching drop as rain, my words descend like dew, like showers on new grass, like abundant rain on tender plants. So the first interpretation we gave was that just means that Torah basically is life-giving, right? It's like water. And we said it goes further than that, though. Just as rain trickles down to everything according to its needs, so it is with Torah and with Yiddishkeit as well, that there's no one size fits all, right? So even as we live very regimented lives following Torah mitzvot, nonetheless, it's not one size fits all. Right, and everyone has their mitzvah that talks to them, or their learning that talks to them, etc. Okay, I think that's all my sources. Let me just check. Yeah, that's it. We're done. Any questions or comments?
I thought that was very interesting. I never thought of that before.
I think it's one of the single biggest problems in any. Sorry, yeah?
So one of the pieces, when they said, Hashem said you can hear many voices in heaven, how do we hear many voices in heaven?
So the answer to that, I guess, is the idea that when that basically, as you would say, Torah talks to you. So when you study something, different things talk to different people. So, for example, Ivor gets very animated when he talks about the Haftarahs. That's clearly something that really, talks to him. You can tell when he does his, what do you call it? Synopsis. Other people get very animated by different aspects of Torah. We all get excited about different things, and other things that we don't find particularly exciting at all. So in practical terms, when you talk about God's voice talking to people, it would simply be that the Torah we study or we engage with talks to us, or the mitzvahs talk to us on different levels. So one person hears God and hears that I have to go out and do shopping for my neighbor. Another person hears God and hears that I have to put on tefillin every day. Another person hears God and hears a message I have to pray. So do we all have to do the 613 mitzvot? Yes. Do we all have to study Torah? Yes. But is there room for our individuality within that? Absolutely 100%. Right? And I said, we see that. People excel in particular mitzvahs. Your son is an expert in the kashrut of whiskey, right? And that's a massive Mordechai Benden. That it takes expertise for that. That's not my field of interest. I'm not an expert in that field. He is excelling. I'm sure he excels in many mitzvahs, but he's excelling in helping with the mitzvah kashrut and promoting that to the masses because he understands it and he explains it, right? Somebody else will be an expert in medical ethics, that they're able, like Rabbi Pink's very good, they're able to give talks and help people and answer questions and discuss with people in a way that people will understand more about organ donation or something like that. You know, there are people who go, Bendov Salaznik is interested in the environment, right? He's got loads of interesting ideas about Jewish sources in the environment, right? Somebody else may come along. It's quite a trendy in reform circles to come along and say, oh, Judaism believes in healing the world, and that means you have to go protest, even if it's on Shabbos and Yom Tov and so on. Okay, there is some value in social action. Some people will get engaged by that. Some people get engaged about Israel, and they go out and they demonstrate they're very pro-Israel. Some people go to Israel and join the IDF. Some people go to Israel and make Aliyah. You know, some people study Torah all day long. And it's interesting. And it was Ben Gurion who recognized the value of having scholars that study Torah all day long in the state of Israel. So we all have different strengths. And this is one of the reasons that, again, it comes out, it's Rosh Hashanah as well. God looked at us individually like a shepherd. And it's one reason that I think I've said before when I was in Yeshiva, and I think it was our Rosh Hashiva's birthday, and we asked him what resolutions he's making on his birthday. And he basically said, none of your business, they won't apply to you, right? He didn't say it he didn't say it rudely like that, but there's a certain truth in that as well. Right? There's no point in my asking you what your New Year resolutions were and my copying them, because my needs are going to be different. At home, we went around the table, we asked everyone what they were going to try to do for the new year. A bunch of the kids said listen to their teachers more, whether they mean it or it's just kind of like, you know, what's expected to be said. I said I was going to do more exercise. We all said different things, right? And that's fine. That's diversity. People are individuals. I think one of the greatest, I know certainly within the religious system, but I'm sure it's the same actually in wider society. It's getting better with things like apprenticeships coming back and internships, recognizing not everyone can sit and study book learning. But the fact is our education systems, particularly religious ones, are very monolithic. They seek to produce a certain kind of, they have an idea in their mind of who they're trying to produce. And, you know, if you don't fit that mold, so I have a friend whose son is very artistic. He originally was at Menorah, and they had, you know, they asked, is there any outlet for his art? Oh, we won't have time for that, too busy learning or whatever. And he had no outlet for his art. He was very frustrated. He moved to Haazinu where they encouraged his art, and he flourished. That's an area he excelled in. You know, people need outlets. So people are different. We need to recognize that. And the education systems that don't recognize the difference of individual children, differentiation, we talk about it all the time in class, right? Those that don't recognize that are the ones that are doomed to failure, basically. But it's you have to be very brave to say something like, oh, you know what, we don't care about exam results. We care about the mental health of our pupils. And they all have different needs and diverse needs. You have to be very brave to say that. But I think it's a massive, massive challenge, particularly in education, of recognizing the diversity of people, not assuming everyone's the same. It was probably the same in our Jewish communities for years and years and years. We all assumed that people had certain things that would, you know, excite them about Judaism, and no one ever thought out the box. You know, that's the way it was. Anyway, the Torah is very clear that we celebrate diversity, we celebrate difference, that different rabbis were praised for different qualities. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be religious, doesn't mean you shouldn't study Torah, but you can excel in different ways. You know, you don't have to be a robot. Oh, Julian, hello. Just noticed you're there. Right. I think I'm as tired as you. I'm falling asleep as well. Huh?
We found the bracha in the art scroll.
Right.
Upon seeing 600,000 or more Jews together.
What is it?
The top.
Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam hacham harazim.
Right,
Blessed
that's
are
it,
you,
yeah.
Hashem, our God,
Yeah.
King of the universe, knower of secrets.
Right. So when you see 600,000 people, the first thing you think is 600,000 secrets. It's interesting. Yeah, so that's as I remembered it. Chacham means the wise one who knows, harazim the secrets. Right? So instead of saying, look at that unity, look at the power of people coming together, we say, look at the difference. It's funny because we often say we don't celebrate difference, but we do. We
should open a school, actually.
Well, this is the schools that are off the beaten track. This is what they're saying. They're saying, you know, not every kid is cut out to, let's take the religious system, not every kid is cut out to learn Gemara and Talmud all day. Some kids, you know, because they're not cut out for that, doesn't make them bad kids. It just makes them out of the box, as they say, on their own path kind of thing. So embrace that. So give them opportunities. Some of them may enjoy actually learning halakha or chumash. Some of them may enjoy learning Jewish history. Some of them may want to go out and do something completely different.
Yeah.
That's one of the problems with a lot of the yeshiva systems. They're very, very monolithic.
Yeah.
And you fall through the cracks, because if you don't fit that expectation, that
Yeah.
cookie cutter mold, then you feel that you're letting the side down. It's very sad. It's very, very sad.
Also, it's that when you know the rabbis come to the SEM on Tuesdays,
Yeah,
everyone has got a different way of teaching.
there you go as
Everybody,
well. Yeah, yeah,
completely, they're all completely
yeah,
different from one another.
yeah. And also the world works because we all have different strengths and talents. If everyone was very musical, if everyone was very studious, or if everyone was, very good at tzedakah, but nobody was good at learning and teaching, if everyone was good at learning and teaching, but nobody was good at, davening for hours, the world wouldn't work. The world works because we all have our mitzvahs and our qualities, which we excel at. And it's a beautiful thing. We should celebrate it always. But we
And
can
the
still have the unity at the same time.
secular world is the same, isn't it? We all can't
Yeah.
be doctors. Someone's got to sweep the roads.
Yeah, absolutely. The lesson of lockdown should have been that we should put more value on certain jobs and less value on other jobs, like footballers. I just saw that. I mean, I don't watch it, but I just saw some of the cast of EastEnders are complaining because they've been told they have to take a 2-month break, and some of them are paid like 250 grand a year, so they're going to lose 2 months' salary. And I'm thinking, lots of people have lost their jobs completely in their businesses in Corona. Why should you not be asked to sacrifice? Why should footballers not be asked to sacrifice, just like everyone else has been? What makes them different and special? So. Yeah.
Because it's a selfish world, isn't it? That's why.
Yeah. And then you have people on the front lines working on minimum wage, putting their lives on the line. So,
Absolutely.
it's a topsy-turvy world, as they say.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I think I'm going to go to sleep. Right.
But I've got one question. Though.
Yeah.
How come my grandparents and my great grandparents and the older generations knew all about the custom?
Yeah.
Knew all about the customs. You know, and they kept kosher. And it seems to me that although we're learning more now from the books and from the Chumash, but every generation seems to be going further away. I think.
There's definitely some truth in that. There's the famous story which I told before. Remember, Moshe Feinstein was asked why so many people in America would come from Europe, religious people, devout people, and their children were not religious. And he said, because they all grew up hearing all the time, as you say, it means how hard it is to be a Jew, which is understandable when people live through the war. Of course, they would say that. But then if all you ever hear is people complaining about the difficulty, it's so hard to get kosher food. Oh, it's so hard to take Shabbos off. Oh, man, it's Rosh Hashanah. I have to take another 2 days off work. Oh, shul is so long. The sermons are terrible. Oh, it's hours. And, eventually, if people kvetch enough, then you're going to say, as a kid, you're not going to want to do that. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. Even a very pious generation, but nonetheless, there was very much a persecution complex, not complex, I mean, it was true, but a kind of persecution mentality. Everyone's against us and everything's so hard and, it's so challenging, everything's so tough. And that may be true, but if you impart that to your children, they're going to say, you know what, if it's so tough, I don't want to do this. I'll forget it. I'll do my own thing. That's one explanation.
But my grandparents didn't think about it so much. They just went along with it. You know what I mean? It was
that as well. Yeah. People weren't as educated to question things. And people were more compliant. People just did what was expected of them. It was true generally. Think how many people as kids came to shul because their parents expected them to. They don't do that now. The world has changed. People are more into their individual rights and stuff, I think.
Right, okay.
I don't know what to tell you. And my grandparents, I think, my mother's parents in later years were Shomer Shabbos. I'm not sure they were in the early years. And my father's parents were very traditional. And I think all of their grandchildren are Shomer Shabbos, which is pretty impressive. So, and then other families where they're not. I think I mentioned this recently. In Yizkor, we say how our parents and grandparents, entrusted us with the role of passing along the traditions of Torah, and we mustn't let them down. And I always think to myself, what if someone's parents were anti-religious and basically would hate to see them observing Judaism? That would be very sad. So, but you're right. It's an erosion across the generations.
The only anti-Semitism I've ever felt was from my mother, and she was the one who was the daughter of a Jew.
Right.
One thing about what Mark is what Mark is saying is that
Oh, yes.
Majority of Jews, which is that probably Mark and mine
Sorry.
and others
So
would
I
have
couldn't.
possibly grown up in Poland or
Sure.
Russia in an entirely Jewish setting.
Yes.
Yes, but
So
yes,
yes,
but I think
so you have to remember that. So the emancipation of coming to America
Is
or
that
Britain.
frozen or something?
Oh.
And when they came over here, they would have been in a very Jewish neighborhood. But for the majority of Jews in this and elsewhere in the Western world, that's no longer going to be the case.
Right.
Even if you're in Hendon or Golders Green or
Well, they lived in the shtetl, and also you have emancipation effectively. They'd never known anything else, and they came over here and they came to America, and suddenly they had freedoms. No.
right,
Oh, we lost everyone there.
right.
I'm
No,
here.
Also, the things that worked for the previous generation, the assumptions about Jewish practice and so on, don't work for this generation anymore. We've clearly failed in that regard because the majority of our young people, with notable exceptions, are extremely ignorant about their heritage. And many of them are in Jewish schools, which compounds the question, why? I was actually just talking to my wife about this. It's funny, you know, it's not funny, but when we were in Cardiff, and I think it's a reflection of the type of community as well, there was at the time a very active group of young parents, maybe about 10, 12 families with kids at primary school age or early teens. And they could be annoying at times, demanding, and some very difficult issues and decisions with Chayda and things like that. But at the end of the day, whenever something Jewish was happening, they would bring their kids along. You know, if there was a Purim party, a Hanukkah party, an event at the rabbi's house, they would send their kids. Now, I don't know how many of those kids today are leading Jewish lives. I know one or two have got married to Jews, but to their credit, they lapped up every opportunity. In Liverpool, I would say it was 50-50. We did some programs. We did like a Friday night, which we've done here. We did the Friday night we've done here with the chicken soup. We get like 50, 60 people. Here, people are really not interested. Malcolm's been calling people with kids. Do you want to come to this, come to that? Zoom programs, real life programs. A bunch of people are like, oh, it's the first week of school. We can't think about Rosh Hashanah. Okay, if that's your attitude, what are your kids going to take away from that? You know, it's really tough. There's definitely a generational shift in apathy. And, you know.
it's very strange, Rabbi, because I remember when I was very young, I was about 6 or 7, we went to the kosher butcher in Brighton. I stayed in Brighton for some time.
Yeah.
And it was like a half a day expedition, you know, because we went to the butcher, and then my grandmother spent about half an hour talking to the butcher. You know, it was different then, wasn't it? You know, it's kind of
community.
You know.
Yeah.
And now, instead of sending them to the Jewish schools, they're sending them to West Hatch, and the West Hatch has become the new Bill. Because Bill, before there was a Jewish school here, everyone sent their children to Bill.
And the problem now is because there's all these Jewish schools, there aren't as many Cheders.
What is this? I don't know why they're all going to West Hatch. I can't understand it.
Because King Solomon isn't meeting their needs for whatever reason. Excuse me.
So they don't care about the Jewish holidays. At least if they get Jewish holidays.
Jacos is a very long way away, basically. You know, I don't know. Let's not go there. Let's think positive. Anyway, I'm going to go.
Rabbi.
To go sleep. Yeah.
Rabbi, just checking what's on this week because
Yes, busy week. Ladies reading tonight. Tomorrow we've got questions and answers. I think it's going to be Blima and myself answering them. I was going to try and get some rabbis on the panel, but they're all not useless, whatever. Can't get them to commit. So probably be Blima and myself, Q&A. Wednesday night we've got the mental health, and Thursday night we've got Michael Rainsbury. So you could be busy every night, but hopefully they appeal to different demographics as well. I probably should send an email out about that, actually. Yeah. All at 8 o'clock.
On my calendar, I've got written for Thursday, Tashlich 4:30. Do I presume that's off?
Yeah, presume it's off because of government restrictions, yes. Please, if you didn't do Tashlich yesterday, definitely do it. But yeah, presume it's off because of government restrictions. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Right.
Yes,
Have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Rabbi.
and
Fast goes okay.
yeah, and wish you better and
Thank
take
you
it
very
easy
much.
today.
I think it just
And-
needs to
Yes.
sleep. Yeah.
Go back to
Thanks.
bed and have a good
Yeah, I think
sleep.
I'm gonna do that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Have a good
Bye,
night.
everyone.
Yes.
Bye.